to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Saturday college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me for today's show are my fellow BBOC co-hosts. We have Greg Waddell, repping Illinois gear. We have Josh Nunn, aka Duck, and making his first appearance on the live show, Christian Ajakjian. I should have asked you before. And Ajakjian, is that, did I get it close?
Close enough. We say Ojakjian these days.
Ojakjian. Okay. You can follow him on X at Oj Hoops, ODJ Hoops. Does some great work. We have a lot to get to today. We're going to give our first of two best bets in just a moment. We'll build out our money line parlay as always. I cost us last week. We hit 3 or 4. So I will take the fall on that. And then we will talk two marquee games today because the slate is so good. We couldn't just pick one. So we'll talk a little Duke, Carolina, and Michigan State, Illinois. But what a slate we have in store from start to finish. It is a great college basketball Saturday leading into Super Bowl Sunday. Before we dive into our first best bets, by the way, we will have quick slip links in the chat, so use them if you want to follow along. Quickly load your bets. Also check out at Playbook on X, the new automated bot from Action Network that makes loading bets very easy. Saves you a lot of manual work if you want to follow along. But before we get into it, any takeaways from the past couple of days? Anything on your mind? You can go wherever you want. You can go North Dakota State, potentially going to the Mountain West. Duck, I don't know. What's on your mind?
I mean, it's just fun to see some of these races take shape. We've got the usual suspect darlings that we've talked about all season in St. Louis and Miami of Ohio that could make some runs. Murray State could make a run. But these leagues, and especially the mid-major and the low-major leagues, are really starting to take some shape. So I'm interested to see some of the games today and how that shakes out. For anyone following me in the Action app, this is going to be a loaded slate. Kind of hoping it's a little bit of an underwhelming slate today here with the 150 games we've got. So going to be a real fun day of games, and I'm excited to get it going.
Oh, you hope there's under? Shocker. Greg, what's on your mind?
Well, we finally saw UConn play a good team in the Big East, and it went how I suspected it might. Now they battled late, made it a very entertaining game down the stretch. But I fear for that team because they actually, I thought, made shots, which has been a concern at times with Solo Ball. He was 2 for 5, and with Mullins back healthy, I think a 9-point loss to the Johnnies on a night where they shoot 47% from three isn't the best data point for a team that's been flirting with disaster all Big East. I'm still looking at them with a side eye stuck.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my key takeaways in that St. John's came into the year, I think, a little overhyped. I think what were they, preseason fifth? They were top five, I think. And Pitino has tweaked with the lineup. They've gone with a little bigger lineup, and they're kind of rounding into form. UConn shot 59% on twos, 48% from threes. It's the first time in 30 years that UConn shot at least 55% from two and 45% from three and lost the game. I thought the difference was the St. John's physicality, their defense. Some of those turnover issues for UConn crept up and bit them. And I thought it was a great win for the Johnnies, who are starting to build some momentum and have found something with a new, revised, and rejuvenated lineup. So, yeah, that was an amazing game, amazing atmosphere for sure there. Christian, how about you? What's on your mind?
UConn's second to last in the Big East in turnover percentage this year. That was definitely the Achilles heel yesterday with 9 for Demery. I'm just so excited to see some of these best teams in the country go head to head. There's so many exciting games today and just upcoming, like even a team like Arizona. If you take a look at their future schedule, they've got at Kansas, home Texas Tech, home BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, home Kansas, home Iowa State. That's like one of the best possible conference schedules I've ever seen stretches. So yeah, I'm just excited to see some of the best teams and players go head to head. Like we'll get into here in a second, but Caleb Wilson versus Cam Boozer today in this Illinois offense that looks unstoppable against the best rebounding team in the country and the best defense in the country.
Yeah, for sure. The Big 12, some of the Big 12 slates this month are crazy, and we're going to benefit from it because we're going to get a ton of great games. Let's get into our first best bets. Greg, you are going to one of those marquee matchups. What do you got?
I am. This is going to be a consistent theme for me. If Duck's hoping for an underwhelming state, I'm fading some spots today, and that's dangerous for sure. But I just think this BYU defense has been terrible against good teams. I'm taking Houston on the money line. It's up to minus 125 this morning. Don't love that. But I think if you look at what BYU has done in quality opponent spots, they have their adjusted defensive efficiency dropping to 72nd nationally against top 40 teams. If you just filter to top 25 teams only, real elite of the elites, it's all the way outside the top 100 nationally, 114th. I don't think they have the personnel for teams with great guards. They can't hide Rob Wright. They're asking AJ DeBonsa often to chase front court guys that are overly physical for him. Houston's got a bunch of those. You look at last year when you watched the Houston BYU series, the difference in physicality was just jarring. And yes, AJ DeBonsa is going to change that athletically, but I don't think it's going to change, physicality, getting after loose balls on the boards, all of those things inside. BYU wants to settle for tough twos. It's just a losing formula against quality opponents. Houston, I think, is waiting for a game like this. They have a very backloaded schedule. They haven't beaten a top 20 opponent on KenPom this season. I think this is a big opportunity for a statement win for Houston.
Yeah, this is a tricky game because the spot does scream BYU. They lost 4 or 5. They're coming back home where they've been much better. Houston's on a roll, but who have they really beat? Their last 3 wins over TCU, Cincy, and UCF in just a great spot that they caught them in. Before then, it was Arizona State, West Virginia, and Baylor. So the spot screams BYU, but this BYU team has some issues, and there's just a lack of depth there, and they're so reliant on their big three. And Wright, as you mentioned, might struggle in this particular matchup. And like, say Saunders has an off day, then it gets really dicey. I do think that there is a path here for BYU. I mean, obviously DeBonsa could go bananas, but they're good on the glass, which you need to be against Houston. So they're off. They can get after the offensive glass here. They're going to have to. The home whistle could be big. Houston will foul you a lot and potentially get in major foul trouble, and BYU can rack up the points there. So this is the old spot versus a Samson team that just the way that they play travels so well, right? Which is why they've been so successful on the road with their blueprint. You can roll that out on any gym in front of any home crowd, and it'll have success. So really intriguing game tonight. Duck, I know you're not going marquee game, and
You
I know
know
you're
what I'm bringing to the table.
you're going way off the radar and an under.
Yeah, St. Bonaventure and Fordham, 140.5. We're going low. Fordham operates at one of the slowest tempos in the entire country, 332nd nationally. And the Rams are just not equipped with a very efficient offense. 28% they are shooting from three-point range, fourth worst in the entire country. And Fordham is the second worst team in America at getting to the foul line. Now, DeJour Reeves could go off for 20 or 25. You have to be willing to live with that. But Christian Henry and Jack Whitborn for Fordham, really streaky, and they could struggle against the pressure that the Bonnies like to apply. Fordham should have plenty of empty trips here offensively. For St. Bonaventure's, these guys want to get the ball into the painted area and get touches for Frank Mitchell. I don't think that's going to work against Fordham. The Rams defend the rim really well, and St. Bonnie's is not going to get to the line here. The Bonnies are going to have to shoot threes when they get deep into the possession clock, something they are not comfortable doing. These guys are 340th nationally in three-point rate. It's just not their game. When I look at the first matchup, it was a major trend under, and then we saw 35 points in the last 4 minutes. I don't think we see it play out that way this time. We have an elevated total due to recent finals for St. Bonaventure, but should be a dead nut under here.
All right, good stuff there in A10 country. Christian, you're going to ACC country. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm looking at Louisville on the road against Wake Forest. I'm admittedly a Wake Forest alum. I rarely bet games involving them on either side, but when this opened at 7.5 yesterday, it just was too good to be true. It's at 9.5 now. I'd still definitely play that. Wake Forest is the worst defense in the ACC throughout league play. You're starting Cooper Schwieger, the Valpo transfer at the 5, who somehow held his own against JT Toppin in Michigan in those 1-point losses in November. But Wake is just not the same team emotionally or stylistically since then. You're without your point guard, Nate Calmise, who
Huge.
is the main offensive initiator for this team. And Juke Harris had 31 against NC State. You still lost by 18 at home. And Kadir Copeland had 10 assists and picked you apart. What is Michael Brown Jr. doing, getting his footing here? Louisville's won all of their games by 9+ points this year. Like, that's just how they win games. So I have no problem laying the number here on the road.
Yeah, this Wake Forest team is very corpse-like as of late. What are your thoughts on Steve Forbes, and like his long-term prospects at Wake?
I mean, he brought Wake out of the depths of hell that they were in and had them playing meaningful basketball in February, 4 straight seasons. But at the end of the day, when his combined Q1 record is something ridiculous, like 5-28. I pulled that number out. It's something like that number. The NIL money's dropping. I would love new. Is it that attractive a job? You're not going to get like a Josh Shirts to come there. So I'm kind of torn. He's a great guy. He's obviously can get them to be not terrible this year. The wheels kind of fell off a bit, but I would like a fresh start. I don't think we're going to get it though, to be honest.
When did you graduate? What year?
The Alondas Williams, Jake Laravia year was my senior year. And that team deserved to make the tournament, but they only played 5 Q1 games the whole year because the ACC was broken.
Yeah. Well, my way back in the day, my favorite Wake alum is Justin Gray, who's at Coastal now, head coach, doing a great job with. I mean, their interior defense is legit, but I love Justin Gray. Who's your favorite all time, Deke?
I mean, I'm gonna say Alondas. I wasn't really attached to Wake
Before then,
getting there. Yeah, and that his ACC Player of the Year was just incredible.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated college players like the past decade. I would stand by that.
Yeah, he was a monster. All right, for my first best bet, I'm gonna stay in ACC country. I'm gonna go with Virginia Tech. I think it's a decent spot for the Hokies. Little misleading score against Duke last week. Like they kept missing wide open threes, down 5, down 6 in the final 10 minutes. That could have made that game a one possession game and put some game pressure on Duke, and then Duke pulled away in the final minute or two. But I just think it's a decent spot. You got a full week off for a coach that I respect. Meanwhile, you have NC State had a barn burner at SMU that came down to the wire midweek. They have Louisville on Monday. A little bit of a fat and happy, sleepy spot here. I can't imagine they're going to keep shooting 45, 50% from three. So maybe some potential looming regression there. My guy, Jordan Majeski, always talks about how to defend Copeland. You need to drop against them. Vatek will do that here. And NC State, look, you can kill Vatek on the offensive glass. That's not NC State's game. So I think Virginia Tech here, they don't turn it over too much. They can get enough offensive rebounds. They can get to the line against this NC State defense enough to keep this within single digits. So give me the Hokies. All right, first best bets. We have Houston, Fordham Bonnies under, Louisville, and Virginia Tech. More to come, but if you want the most out of your sports betting life, you need Action Pro. And in honor of Super Bowl 60, we are giving you $60 off a year of Action Pro. If you want all of our college hoops picks, as soon as we track them in the app, you'll need Action Pro. All that plus real money and bet percentages, access to our pro player prop projections, and more. That's $60 off for Super Bowl 60. Head to actionnetwork.com/pro now to take advantage. That's actionnetwork.com/pro. All right, let's talk our first of 2 marquee matchups. It's a classic rivalry between Duke and North Carolina. Duke 5.5 point road favorite here. Can't wait for this one. Greg, break it down. What are you seeing?
I'm going to fire on the home dog here. I got it at 6.5 yesterday. And when you think through North Carolina's worst stretches of the season, it's largely been vulnerabilities at defending shot-making guards that just explode. I don't think Duke has those. Caleb Foster hasn't scored double figures in a game in a month and a half. Isaiah Evans is shooting 30% from 3 against Tier A opponents this year. I mean, maybe this is a game that Evans just, catches fire. That's certainly a possibility. But even his archetype, the catch and shoot guy that's going to get 11 attempts up, I think North Carolina has the size on the wing to disrupt that. Then you look in the front court. The whole question here is, can you hang against Cameron Boozer? I think Caleb Wilson's familiarity with his former AAU teammate is going to help him there. He knows every trick in the book. I'm not saying he's going to automatically outplay him because they're friends and teammates, but I think it's one of those things you don't really understand the physicality that Boozer brings to the table unless you've seen it repeatedly. Caleb Wilson has. I look at the Vesar and Agongba matchup. Vesar can stretch him out a little bit. I don't think that bodes well for Duke. It's just a favorable number to me at 6.5 for the home team in a juiced up rivalry game. I'm going to be on the heels.
Yeah, I would. I think it's worth taking a shot on UNC. I prefer the money line because I think in order for you, there's a lot of variance in this game in that I think it's going to come down to UNC shooters, right? You go back to what Duke has done in ACC play, haven't really played anybody. They played Louisville without Brown and then his first game back. But the games where they were close, you go back to Florida State, Georgia Tech, SMU. It was teams shooting 50, 55% from three. They'll give you looks from three, and that's how you have to score on them consistently. You're not going to score on them inside. Carolina has shooters, so I think there's a lot of variance. Is Carolina hot from three here? That's what I think the game might come down to, because it's not. If that's the case, I don't think Duke will be able to match them. It's not a great shooting Duke team. Right, Boozer's dominant, their defense is dominant, but it's not an elite shooting team. I don't like that UNC. They don't sometimes Duke turns it over too much, but UNC doesn't turn you over at all. I don't like that, but I think it's worth a shot on UNC money line. They get hot at home with their shooters, but should be a pretty good one. Duck, you're looking at the total here potentially.
Yeah, I look at a couple things here for Duke. They got a couple stinker games out of the way. Spot that I had circled earlier this week, hosting BC. They didn't play very well offensively, grinded out a win, never really threatened to cover in that one. I think we see the urgency on the offensive end for Duke change here on the big stage here. Duke, the fifth most efficient offense in the college leagues. There's a lot of weapons to defend. Everyone knows about Boozer, likely the Wooden Award winner. But Isaiah Evans seemingly goes for 15 to 20 every night. Ngongbo's strong in the paint. These guys, pretty decent shooting team. I look at UNC, they are a really good squad and they're playing good basketball, but it's not because of their defense. Hubert Davis made mention of the Heels defense and their intensity and their lack of tenacity on that end of the floor. And the comments he made leads me to believe they're not where he wants them to be. The last 8 games have soared over for UNC. They're giving up 75 or more in 7 of those 8 games. And if you just isolate ACC play, UNC 13th in the league in adjusted defensive efficiency and worst team in the league in shooting percentage allowed. They're not defending the three-point line well. Just limited wow factor defensively for the Heels. Now, offensively, they're the best in the ACC in terms of effective field goal percentage, not turning the ball over. Both these teams excel at getting to the foul line. You want points with the clock stopped. That's great for an over. And you might see some of that ACC quick whistle stuff here in the second half. Both these teams might get into the bonus a couple of minutes earlier than expected in the second half. Could make for a ton of foul shooting late in the second half here. I think we'll see firepower. The last 4 regular season meetings have cleared this total. I like over 152.5.
Yeah, the UNC defense isn't as bad, I think, as some of the numbers, because there was a 2-week stretch where teams were shooting 50% from three, no one could miss, and still in league play, teams are shooting 42% from three. In the ACC, that's an astronomically high number. So maybe there's some regression there, but there are issues on that defense. They're so passive, and if you're going to be that passive, right, they will never force a turnover. You got to be a team like Carolina. You have to be completely dominant on the defensive glass, which they're not. So yeah, their defense is definitely concerning. Christian, you're looking the other way, and you're potentially looking at the Blue Devils here.
Yeah, I was thinking I was going to end up on UNC. It's just a lot of points in a situation. It's Duke Carolina. The stat that they always put up on the graphic of the score being the exact same in the entire history of the rivalry. It's just hard to get yourself to back the road team in this rivalry a lot of the times. But as I started to dig in, that 4-game stretch from January 3rd to January 17th where Carolina lost 3 of 4. The one win was to Wake at home. Like Greg said, guards were just killing them. Boopy Miller killed them.
Yeah.
Nate Calmes had 28 and 9. Corey killed them. And Dade Ames had 19 and 5 too. But recently, they haven't done a good job guarding bigs either. When you have 2 potential first-round NBA draft picks in the front court, Bane Adongo goes for 27 and 7. Tyson Ritter had 20 and 8. Donnie Freeman just had 23 and 8. So what happens when Cameron Boozer comes? Cameron Boozer has been so ridiculously productive in every single spot this year. If you're bringing a double, um, you're preying on Duke to just be missing shots. And I understand that when sometimes Isaiah Evans seems like the only guy who's really a knockdown shooter outside of him. But I'm just looking at Karen Boozer's production, and even with Wilson's familiarity, just how much do I trust Carolina? And then on the offensive end, like, the Kyan Evans experiment has, like, that just really was not the fit for him. And Derek Dixon's had flashes, but you're starting Jaden Young now. Do we know how good this North Carolina team's? And if Texas Tech doesn't go absolutely nuts in that second half, Duke's undefeated right now, and I think the narrative about them's a little bit different. So I think they kind of make a statement here. I think it was last year Duke won at Carolina. When it was a similar situation, we know Duke's a much better team, but is the spot setting up for Carolina? So if I had to pick, I don't feel great about it just because of the rivalry, but I think there might be a little discount on Duke here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Duke's not a great three-point shooting team, but Boozer's actually at 38%. Does the guy have any weaknesses? And obviously we kind of buried the lead. I mean, Caleb Wilson versus Cam Boozer is going to be incredible. A underrated storyline or potential factor in this game that could determine the outcome. Does either one of those players get the other or others in foul trouble? Because both certainly will draw lots of fouls. I think they're each around like 6.5 per 40. So the whistle will definitely be important. I know, Duck, you'll be rooting for a heavy whistle there. But let's move on to the other primetime marquee game between Illinois and Michigan State. Illinois is a buzzsaw at the moment. This game hanging right around a pick. Michigan State -1. Seeing some movement this morning. Michigan State has lost 2 straight, lost at Minnesota, coming back home. Desperation spot against a red-hot Illinois team. This is very similar to BYU Houston, right? Like the spot favors the team that you probably don't want to back, and the team that is on a roll might have some schematic advantages here. And Greg, you think that's the case. You're fading another spot here. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone based on your attire. You're rolling with the Illini.
Yep, ILL, baby. D Brown, get him out of the closet. Okay, this is a big opportunity game for Illinois for a bunch of reasons. We all know how good they are. I think they're playing as good as anyone in the country, including Arizona, in the last month. Since they've slowed tempo down, since they've gotten more shooting on the floor, they've basically been completely unbeatable. And you mentioned it, they're a buzzsaw. This is like sitting at the roulette table that's hit red 11 straight times and keep putting it on red. That's what I'm doing. I'm putting it on orange. Michigan State, all they do for 25 years of Tom Izzo, defend, rebound, run. It's simple. When they do it effectively, you look at this matchup, I don't know which of those areas they have success in here. This is the #1 offense in the history of the KenPom database that's clicking on all cylinders. It's going to stretch their bigs out, keep them away from the basket. In terms of rebounding, Michigan State is the best rebounding team in the country when you factor in both ends. However, when they go up against elite rebounding teams, Duke and Michigan, they did not win the rebounding battle in those games. And Illinois is awesome on the boards. And then in terms of transition, I mean, that's the one area. If they are getting stops, I do think Michigan State can get out and run a little bit. Illinois' transition defense hasn't been great, but it's going to be a low possession game because of how Illinois wants to execute in the half court. They put it all through Wagler, who may be the most composed freshman I've ever seen. I mean, he went into Mackey Arena and put 46 on Braden Smith. Like, I don't expect him to be spooked by Jeremy Fears and his antics. And quite frankly, with Divine Ugachukwu ruled out for the rest of the season, Tom Izzo has a Jeremy Fears problem. He's going to have to be on the floor for 40 minutes in this game, despite the rumors of being benched in a spot like this. Too many questions for Michigan State. I'm just going to roll with the better team and honestly bank it to go like the Michigan game did a week ago, where it was also the spot screaming Michigan State. There's a caliber difference in favor of the Illini.
I'd be curious to see does he start Fears, or do we get Wojcik minutes? Do they go down 10-0? And then he brings in Fears because Fears is going to have to play this whole game. I mean, on the spot, the one thing I know that you'll get Michigan State's best effort, like on the glass, the energy with the crowd. I do think it's going to probably come down. So I lean their way just on the spot but it's going to come down to Illinois shot making. Because if Illinois is making shots, that Michigan State can't keep up. But if they're not, Illinois doesn't give up a ton of transition opportunities, but a lot of that's because they always score. But when they do, they're 30th percentile in efficiency in transition on the defensive side of the ball. So you can score, and that's Michigan State. Michigan State has to score in transition. They are not going to score in the half court. So I think this is going to come down to Illinois shot making, but you will get like the max effort from Michigan State. Is it enough? Not so sure. Duck, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, I leaned to the under. I didn't get to the window, but Izzo really challenged his bunch after the Penn State game they almost lost. And then again, after getting shredded by Cornell, Sparty was able to respond defensively, allowing 66 points or less in the first 8 games in conference play after the Cornell game. And I look at Michigan State with the fourth most efficient defense per Ken Pom in the entire country. They don't allow offensive rebounds. Michigan State has been good in the interior with Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper. They're not going to send you to the line. They're not going to give up a tremendous amount of second chance opportunities. And after giving up 79, 83, and 76 points, I really think Michigan State needs to get a concerted solid effort defensively back to being what this team is capable of. I look at Illinois. They have so much size and length, really going to create some problems for Michigan State offensively. You're not going to the line against Illinois, so don't expect and ones, don't expect cheapies at the line. I just think that neither one of these teams, we talked about it, not going to commit a lot of turnovers. You're going to get a pretty honest game with execution in the half court. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this pace gets to a crawling pace once we hit the under 8 timeout in the second half. Maybe there's some truth to Illinois shooting on the crappy rim in the second half. We kind of heard about Michigan State pitting them on that. So a small lean to the under here.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State, another good thing for Michigan State, at least Illinois doesn't force turnovers because turnovers have been a major issue. Jackson Kohler, I mean, where have you gone? I mean, he obviously wasn't going to keep shooting the way that he was, but I mean, this guy can't hit the broadside of the barn. They need him tonight. Christian, what are you seeing in this game?
When you speak of Jackson Kohler, something that I think really encapsulates Michigan State basketball and why I always have a tough time and get frustrated by them is first play of the game against Michigan State. Jeremy Fierce drove to the basket, got into the rim, had like 2 or 3 defenders collapse, and kicks it out to Jackson Kohler, who's wide open in the corner. But right before Fierce lets go of the ball, Kohler like takes a step in, you know, and Cohen Carr, by the way, is like on the low wing. The point I'm getting at is Jackson Kohler, you're this team's best 3-point shooter. Stand in the corner and knock down the open corner 3. Like they're so archaic offensively, and it's really frustrating just with the lack of spacing. You're asking Fears, who's had a tumultuous week, whether he's on Twitter or not, like there's no way this is not in his head the way that he's being perceived. And, he's number 1 in the country in assist rate. He's had a couple huge scoring games lately. They needed heroics from him to beat Rutgers. Like, and now you take out Ugochukwu, who's given them a nice lift in some of these big games. So, like, I'm just so low on what this Michigan State offense is. And, you look at some of the other interesting parts of this matchup, like Illinois being the 4th best offensive rebounding team in the country, going against the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the country, or the team that turns the ball over the most in the Big Ten against the team that forces the least amount of turnovers in the country. There's so many interesting clashes, but when you guys describe how this tempo is going to be slowed down, how Illinois has picked apart every single defense they've faced, and our concerns of Michigan State, I can't, the spot doesn't lure me, but because it is such a tough environment, the under is enticing to me because we can see how these possessions are really slow for Illinois, and for Michigan State, they just struggle to, your possessions end up being longer when you can't generate a good look at all. One last thing though about this the idea of Michigan State and like effort defensively, I have zero question of effort. I just don't think it's a question of effort when you're playing an offense this good, and will be interesting to see how Michigan State, like when you mix in that Purdue game where Wagler went crazy, right? The chess match of do I switch, do I not switch when Wagler's hitting these threes over the bigs? Like, are we cool with that? Fine, we'll mix in a soft hedge. I'll pass it to Tommy Avicic or Merkovich, and they're hitting threes on the pop. Purdue's bigs being just a little bit slower footed than like Cooper. Like that's something that Cooper and Kohler and just Cohen Carr's ability to recover, like picking apart that Michigan State defense in the half court. It's a game of milliseconds, right? Like just getting to those shooters and contesting those shots a little bit better. Like Illinois could struggle to hit 75 points in this game, as good as their offense is, just because of the environment and because of the way Michigan State can defend. But I still can't back Sparty with any confidence. Illinois or the under for me.
Yeah, and if Ugochukwu, without him, and if Kohler's not going to make threes, like who's making shots? Like it's just Fears mid range, and like you hope you get the rebound. Like there's just no shooting because Kohler needs to have a big day. All right, let's move on to our money line parlay. I cost this last week with I had Murray State against Belmont. Belmont's cost me a ton of money the last week because they're 64 of 130 from 3 over the past 4 games. Which is insane. I know they have good shooters, but geesh, no one can make a 3 against them. But Murray was obviously the wrong side. But everyone else did their job. Let's try to go 4 for 4 here. Greg, kick us off.
We're going to start us off with Tennessee on the money line at Kentucky. Another game that is right in that 8 o'clock window. All these late games that are primetime spots at once get four TVs out, folks. But I like this spot. We talked about it on the midweek pod a little bit. Shout out to Jim Root for kind of angling for this one. I think it's one of those games where Tennessee had the huge lead against Kentucky earlier in the month. They blow it. Kentucky gets the emotional victory. Now you're kind of waiting to see them again, and let's go get our revenge. Nate Ament is playing his best ball of the year. 3 KenPom MVPs in his last 6 games, scored 22 or more in 3 of the last 4. He just looks like a different player than he was even the first time these two teams played, but definitely earlier in the season. And then I think this is just a good sell high spot on Kentucky in general. Everything's been breaking their way. They kind of hit a soft patch of the schedule, and credit to Pope, they've been taking care of business. I still have massive questions on the personnel of this team with all the injuries. I think they're sort of due for a really huge letdown, embarrassing loss. I think it comes tonight against Tennessee.
Yeah, my guy Will Warren, he mentioned this, and over the last 8 games, Kentucky in the final 8 minutes of games, they're the first 32 minutes, they're shooting 37% from three. Opponents are shooting 37% from three. Over the final 8 minutes, they're shooting 40% from three. Their opponents are shooting 14. So I'm not sure that can last, and I think this game will be close. And I agree with you. I'm on Tennessee as well. The Ament's emergence has been amazing to watch because he just looked so soft and didn't know if he belonged early in the season. You had all these other freshmen, to see his emergence has definitely been impressive. Duck, what do you got? You're on mute.
We're going to go with Navy. Big revenge spot for the Middies at home, looking to avenge their only Patriot League loss of the season. Navy has more minutes continuity and they've played more together than any team in the country. We look at Austin Benini, who can score 25 to 30 every game. He's such a great facilitator of the basketball. Aiden Kehoe is really hard to guard in this league. Routinely gets paint touches. Shoots like 74% from the field.
He can get
Jinwoo
like 20
Kim,
rebounds in a game, Kehoe.
just a dominant player at the Patriot League level. Jinwoo Kim and Draper are so versatile for the middies. I look at Navy, they didn't shoot the ball very well in the first meeting. They were down 10 like immediately against American, and they just could not claw their way back. American had lost 2 straight Patriot League games going into that first meeting, and Navy was on a roll, winning 4 in a row. Perhaps a chance the mids overlooked American a bit in that first matchup. That will not happen here. American relies so much on Greg Jones and Madden Collins, and when the shots are not falling, it is ugly for the Eagles. We saw that play out in the last 3 games against Loyola Maryland, Lafayette College, and Bucknell. Navy should win this game convincingly.
I love how you from our NFL show, Win Stocks Money. Check that out if you haven't yet. We were talking about Navy basketball, and you brought it full circle. Where is Americans' mindset? They lost. I think they lost the last 2 games at the buzzer. So where are they mentally? It could be a big advantage for Navy in that aspect. Christian, what do you got?
Let's get gross. Last place in the Big East, Marquette team. A lot of people have tuned out from because why watch a 8-15 team in a lost season where Shaka obviously saw a lot of criticism for not going to the portal, but he's tightened up the rotation lately. Nigel James has really broken out as one of the best guards in the Big East, and with this tighter 7-man rotation, I think this team just looks a lot better. They've beaten Creighton, Providence, and Xavier at home, lost only by 3 to Villanova at home. And now you're getting a Butler team who just 2 weeks ago you lost 87-76 at their place, where you shot 5 of 27 from deep, 19%, and 26 of 36 from twos, 72%. Bizjack goes for 28. A lot went Butler's way in that one. So really cheap number, only laying 2 for a Marquette team that's trending in the right direction. And when you think about Butler starting the season so well, looking like a potential tournament team, looking like a potential team at the top of the Big East, they're just trending this way, right? While Marquette, say what you want about Shaka, he's got a bunch of young players who will probably be back next year. And I think I just like the way they're headed. So I think Nigel James and the boys get this one done at home.
All right, and I'll finish things up with South Alabama. There is some risk here because they're going to give up a trillion threes to Buffalo, who can shoot, but I just don't think Buffalo's going to be prepared for the zone. I mean, they don't see much zone in the MAC. I think the only zone they've seen all year is VMI, which doesn't count. So they're going to see a funky zone here. Not sure they'll be prepared. They're just going to chuck a ton of bad shots. they're not great on the offensive glass, which you need to be against South Alabama. And South Alabama's offense, their entire offense is get to the rim at all costs. And Buffalo is one of the worst rim defenses in the country. And South Alabama at home in these, MAC belt challenges, I think it really favors the home team. Like Buffalo going all the way down to Mobile after almost beating Miami of Ohio. Like, are they really going to be fully locked in here? I don't think so. I think South Alabama gets it done. So we have Tennessee, Navy, Marquette, and South Alabama. Pays up around plus 630. Before we get out of here, at the buzzer, one final best bet. Got about 30 to 45 seconds each. Greg, what do you got?
I'm going to take a flyer on Indiana -4.5 at home against Ohio State. All offense here, but this is a good time on the schedule to buy back into Indiana. They had that 4-game losing streak where they played 4 top 15 teams. 4 of their last 5 games have been on the road. They impressed me, beating Purdue at home, then going to UCLA. Their legs gave out against USC. They should have a little rest, fresh legs in this one. Wisconsin's been flirting with disaster in first halves, down 20 to Minnesota, down 11 immediately to Ohio State. If they get down early to an Indiana team that can shoot the lights out at home, I think the Hoosiers roll.
Duck?
We're going to stay in that MAC Sun Belt Challenge. We're going to lay 6.5 with Appy State at home. Appy is so athletic. They're the best defensive team in the Sun Belt. The on-ball pressure, they do some trapping, lots of high-intensity defense. You're not going to get into the lane against these guys. You look at Eastern Michigan, where Appy struggles is with up-tempo teams who can toast them in transition. That is not EMU by any stretch. A name to watch, Jalen Tott. He comes off the bench, an absolute sniper from 3, has hit 5 threes or more in 4 of the last 5 games. I think Appy can shoot over the top against EMU. I also think Alonzo Dodd and Kaysen Jennings can create and get some good looks for them and find Luke Wilson down low. EMU has hung their hat on being a solid defensive team, but these guys are getting shredded nightly in the MAC. They don't want to shoot threes, but they're going to have to here. Carlos Hart has been out of the fold for a while, and now Makai Ellison for EMU not going to go today. I don't think this is going to go well for Eastern Michigan, so I'm laying it here with Appy.
Some higher program is going to make a great hire when they get Dustin Kearns. Christian, what do you got for your final best bet?
Another home gross Big East game. Got Providence laying 5 against DePaul. DePaul hasn't won on the road in Big East play, and Providence finally got an elusive close win, beating Butler in double overtime at home. They beat Creighton at home as well and blew it against UConn and Georgetown at home, games that they had double-digit leads in the second half. So I think when you look at Providence having a really good offensive team, this is the 26th best offense in the country, in their home environment against a DePaul team that defensively they're good, but will that transfer on the road against an actually talented offensive team, not some of these bad and mediocre Big East teams? So I think the Friars keep things rolling with a second straight home win, lay the 5.
Betting Providence games, not for the faint of heart. You're a braver man than me. Their games are wild. They can score on anyone, and then I'm like, well, then they just don't stop anyone for long stretches and look completely lost in the defensive end. But with them being able to score on almost anyone, it's hard to imagine DePaul really keeping up, to your point. And I will close things out with Washington at UCLA tonight. I think there's some looming two-way three-point regression for UCLA, but more importantly, rebounding bonanza for Washington here. I think they can dominate the glass on both ends. They won't turn it over too much. I think that'll be enough for a team that's really rounding into form. They've kind of figured out their backcourt. They can really get after the glass. So I think Washington keeps this close at UCLA. That'll do it for us. Thanks to Christian, Duck, Greg for joining me. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back same time next week. We also have 3 episodes as we do each and every week. Guys from the 3-Man Weave will have early week look. Duck, you'll catch him the midweek episode. And then myself, Greg, and Jim. Although we have a replacement this week, Kai. Jim's going to be away on Thursday, previewing next weekend slate. Make sure you check out Big Bets on Campus, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks again for tuning in. Enjoy the amazing college basketball slate. Good luck on all of your wagers, and enjoy the Super Bowl as well. We'll catch you all next week. Cheers.